My dad has always had a way of making a moment about himself, but what he did at my college graduation, in front of my entire class, my professors, and my girlfriend's family, was something I never saw coming, and what I did in response. Let's just say no one in that auditorium will ever forget it. I'm Leo. I'm 22 now, but this story starts way before the cap and gown. It starts with the quiet kind of neglect that nobody ever calls out because it doesn't leave bruises. Growing up, my dad, Mark, was the kind of man who filled a room. He was a regional sales manager, the guy who could sell ice to an Eskimo, as he liked to say. He had a booming voice, a wide smile, and a complete inability to focus on anything that wasn't directly about him. My mom, Elena, was quieter. She was the one who remembered my pediatrician appointments, who packed my lunches with little notes, who sat through my painfully long elementary school recorder concerts with a genuine smile. My older sister, Claire, was the star. She was 3 years ahead of me, a natural athlete, a straight-A student, and she had my dad's charisma. She was his little champion. I was just Leo. When I was 8, I built a model of the solar system for the science fair. It took me 3 weeks. I hand-painted Jupiter's storm. I painstakingly glued rings around Saturn. My mom drove me to the school, helped me set it up. When my dad came home that night, Claire was showing him a trophy she'd won for soccer. He had her on his shoulders, spinning her around. I held up my project. Dad, look, I got second place. He glanced over, nodded, and said, "That's great, buddy. Hey, Claire, tell Mom about the goal you made." I stood there holding my solar system, waiting for him to look back. He never did. That was the pattern. Claire's achievements were celebrated. My successes were acknowledged with a pat on the head and a swift redirection of attention. My failures, though, those were a problem. When I was in middle school, I struggled with math. I wasn't failing, but I was hovering at a C. My dad sat me down at the kitchen table, spread my test out in front of him, and sighed. "Leo, this is embarrassing," he said, shaking his head. "The Anderson's son is in your class, and he got an A. What am I supposed to say when he asks me how you did?" I remember the heat rising to my face. It wasn't about me understanding the concepts. It was about how my C reflected on him. I became acutely aware that I was, in his eyes, a walking reflection. A mirror that most of the time was slightly smudged. High school was more of the same. I found my niche in creative writing and theater tech. I loved working behind the scenes, building sets, designing lighting. It was a world where I could create without being in the spotlight. My mom came to every play, sitting in the front row, beaming. My dad came to exactly one. It was a production of our town. I'd spent weeks designing the lighting for the final act. When the lights dimmed to that perfect, mournful glow, I felt a surge of pride. After the show, I found my dad by the exit, already in his coat. "Good job, Leo. Listen, we're going to grab a late dinner. You coming?" He was talking to Claire and her boyfriend. I wasn't upset. I was used to it. But that night, I remember my mom driving us home, and she reached over and squeezed my hand. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The tension between my parents grew as Claire and I got older. My mom wanted my dad to be more present. He'd dismiss it, saying he worked hard to provide. And he did. We lived in a nice house. I never wanted for food or clothes. But the one thing I actually wanted, his attention, his pride, was the one thing he never seemed to have enough of. When it came time for college, I got into a decent state school for theater design. It wasn't a top-tier Ivy, but it was a respected program. My mom was thrilled. My dad's reaction was a shrug. "Theater design? You mean like painting backdrops?" He said it with a smirk, like it was a joke. "Well, it's your life. Hope you can make a living at it." He didn't ask about scholarships or loans or any of the logistics. My mom handled all of that. Claire, meanwhile, was off at a prestigious university on a partial athletic scholarship, studying business. My dad would brag about her to anyone who'd listen. "My daughter, the future CEO," he'd say, puffing out his chest. "She gets her drive from me." I'd just nod and keep to myself. I'd learned that my peace lay in being invisible. If I didn't exist in his narrative, I couldn't be a disappointment. But here's the thing about invisibility. It gives you a lot of time to think, a lot of time to observe, a lot of time to build a world for yourself, brick by brick, without anyone looking over your shoulder. College was my escape. I dove into my work. I found professors who saw my potential, who challenged me. I spent countless nights in the scene shop, the smell of sawdust and paint becoming my comfort zone. I also, out of necessity, got a job. I started as a barista at a local coffee shop, but I quickly realized I had a knack for social media. I started making little videos for the shop, artsy slow-mo shots of latte art, behind-the-scenes clips. The owner, a guy named Marcus, noticed. By my sophomore year, I was managing all their social media and helping a few other local businesses do the same. It wasn't theater design, but it was a skill I was building. By junior year, the side gig had grown into a small business. I had 5 regular clients, all local businesses. I was making enough to cover my rent and most of my tuition. I never told my family, not my mom, not Claire, and especially not my dad. Why would I? I knew exactly what would happen. If I told my mom, she'd be proud, but she'd worry. If I told my dad, he'd either dismiss it as a hobby, or worse, try to take credit for my entrepreneurial spirit, saying it was in my blood. I didn't want his dismissal, and I didn't want his appropriation, so I kept my success to myself. It was mine, a quiet, solid thing that existed apart from him. My senior year, things got even more interesting. I met a girl named Maya. She was in the business school, funny, sharp as a tack, with this warm, easy confidence that I was instantly drawn to. She didn't know anything about my family dynamics. She just knew me as Leo, the guy who built sets and ran a marketing business on the side. One night, a few months into our relationship, she asked me about my dad. I gave her the vague, sanitized version. She looked at me, her head tilted, and said, "Leo, you're one of the most ambitious people I know. You built a business from nothing. You're graduating with honors." Did that drive come from him? I thought about it. No, I said. It came from realizing I couldn't count on him. I had to build my own table. She didn't push. She just squeezed my hand, much like my mom used to. But it was different. With my mom, it felt like comfort. With Maya, it felt like validation. Graduation day arrived. The plan was simple. My mom, Maya, and Maya's parents were coming. My dad said he'd be there too. I wasn't holding my breath. I'd already made peace with the fact that he might get called away for a work emergency. It was his standard move. Show up late, make a scene, or don't show up at all. But that morning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. "Save me a seat. Wouldn't miss it." I felt a weird knot in my stomach. Something about it felt off. The text was too eager, too performative. I showed it to Maya. "He's coming," I said. "What do you think that means?" Gave me a gentle smile. "Maybe he finally figured out how amazing you are." I wanted to believe her. But I knew my dad. He didn't show up for things unless he was the main event. The ceremony was held in the university's massive, domed arena. Thousands of people, rows upon rows of black gowns. I was sitting with my department, the arts and humanities section, towards the back. The energy was electric, a mix of relief and excitement. My mom and Maya had sent me a selfie from their seats, way up in the stands. My mom was crying already. Maya was giving a thumbs up. I texted back, "I see you." When they called my name to walk across the stage, I felt a moment of pure, unadulterated pride. I shook hands with the dean, accepted my diploma, and walked back to my seat. It was a blur, but it was my blur. I had done it. After the ceremony, the graduates were instructed to gather in a massive open plaza outside the arena to meet with families. It was chaotic, a sea of black gowns and colorful flowers. I was scanning the crowd for my mom and Maya when I heard it, a voice, amplified by a microphone, cutting through the chatter. Excuse me, can I have everyone's attention?" My blood ran cold. I knew that voice. I turned, and there he was, my dad, standing on the base of a large statue in the middle of the plaza. He had somehow gotten a microphone, maybe from one of the university sound techs. Maybe he'd brought his own, I don't know. He was in his best suit, his face red and grinning. He looked like a man about to give a keynote speech. People were stopping, turning. A circle was forming. I saw my mom's face in the crowd, her expression a mix of horror and confusion. Maya was beside her, her eyes wide. My dad pointed directly at me. "There he is. There's my boy, Leo." I was frozen. I couldn't move. I was in the middle of the plaza, my gown still on, my diploma in my hand, and every eye in a 3-mile radius was suddenly on me. "I just want to say a few words about my son," he announced to the crowd, his voice echoing off the buildings. "You know, a lot of you are celebrating today, and that's great, but I think we all need to understand something." He paused for dramatic effect. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. "My son, Leo, he's always been a little different," he said, the word different dripping with a condescending kind of sympathy. "He never really had the drive for business, like his sister. He never played sports. He was always in the background, you know, building things, playing with his little lights." A few people in the crowd gave a nervous, uncertain laugh. I saw a group of my classmates looking at me, their faces a mix of pity and amusement. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the ground to open up. "I was worried about him," my dad continued. shaking his head, putting on a show of paternal concern. I mean, a theater degree? What are you gonna do with that, Leo? Flip burgers. That's what I used to joke with him. He laughed. Get it? Burger flipping? Because you work at a coffee shop. He thought he was being endearing. He thought he was giving a funny, heartfelt speech about how his struggling artist son finally made it. But he was stripping me bare. He was laying out every insecurity, every dismissive comment, every moment of neglect, and packaging it as a cute anecdote for a crowd of strangers. But you know what? He said, his voice getting louder, more emotional. He did it. He actually did it. He's the first one in our family to get a degree in, well, in something creative. And I wanted to make sure I was here to see it. I wanted to make sure everyone knew that. Despite it all, he's my son. Despite it all, those 3 words hit me harder than anything. Despite my lack of drive. Despite my different interests. Despite being the son he clearly felt he had to apologize for, even in his moment of pride. He was using my graduation as a stage for his own redemption arc, the distant father who finally came around to support his black sheep son. He was getting applause from people who didn't know the context, people who saw a doting father making a funny, emotional speech. They didn't see the 8-year-old with the solar system. They didn't see the years of being invisible. They just saw a showman doing his thing. He started wrapping it up. So, let's give a big round of applause for my boy Leo, the artist, the dreamer. Who knew, right? Crowd clapped. Some people were wiping away tears. I saw my mom, still in the crowd, her face pale, her hands clenched at her sides. Maya looked like she was about to be sick. Maya's parents, who I'd only met a few times, were standing there with frozen, polite smiles. My dad hopped down from the statue, microphone still in hand, and started walking toward me, arms outstretched for a hug. The crowd was parting for him like he was a celebrity. This was his moment, his climax. And that's when something inside me just snapped. But not in a loud way. Not in the way he would have. All those years of being quiet, of observing, of building my own table in the shadows. It all crystallized in that one moment. I didn't feel anger, not at first. I felt a cold, terrifying clarity. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I walked toward him. Not to embrace him. I walked until we were face to face. The echo of his speech still buzzing in the air. Dad, I said, my voice low, calm. It didn't carry. I made sure it didn't. He was still beaming, still holding the microphone. There he is. Give your old man a hug. Give me the microphone. I said. He laughed. What? You want to say a few words? Sure, buddy. Go ahead. He handed it to me, probably expecting me to echo his sentiments, to thank him for being such a supportive father. He folded his arms, that smug look on his face, ready to bask in the shared moment. I held the microphone. The plaza was still buzzing with chatter, but people were still looking at us. They sensed something. I looked out at the crowd. I saw my mom. I saw Maya. I saw my professors. I saw Claire, who had flown in for the ceremony, standing near the back with a confused look on her face. I lifted the microphone to my lips. Hi, I said. My voice came out clear and steady over the loudspeakers. The chatter died down almost instantly. My dad just told you a story about me. A story about the different son he was worried about. The one who flipped burgers. The one who played with lights. My dad's smile faltered for a second. He shifted his weight. He told you that story because it makes him feel good. It makes him look like a hero who finally accepted his flawed son. But that's not the story. I looked directly at my dad. His face was starting to turn a shade of red I'd never seen before. The story is that I built the lighting for every theater production here for the last 3 years. The story is that while he was telling people I was flipping burgers, I was building a marketing agency that currently manages the accounts for 12 local businesses and grossed over $100,000 last year. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw some of my professors nodding. I saw Maya's hand go to her mouth. The story is that I paid for the last 2 years of my education myself, not with his money. With money I earned while he was too busy talking about my sister's soccer trophies to ask me how my day was. My dad took a step forward, his hand out. Leo, that's enough. I'm not finished, I said, and the calm in my voice surprised even me. He stopped. You wanted everyone to see you here today, I continued. You wanted your moment. You wanted to stand on a statue and tell a story that made you look like the forgiving father. But you never asked me what my story was. You never cared. You just needed a stage. It makes him look like a hero who finally accepted his flawed son. But that's not the story. I looked directly at my dad. His face was starting to turn a shade of red I'd never seen before. The story is that I built the lighting for every theater production here for the last 3 years. The story is that while he was telling people I was flipping burgers, I was building a marketing agency that currently manages the accounts for 12 local businesses and grossed over $100,000 last year. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw some of my professors nodding. I saw Maya's hand go to her mouth. The story is that I paid for the last 2 years of my education myself, not with his money. With money I earned while he was too busy talking about my sister's soccer trophies to ask me how my day was. My dad took a step forward, his hand out. "Leo, that's enough. I'm not finished," I said, and the calm in my voice surprised even me. He stopped. "You wanted everyone to see you here today," I continued. "You wanted your moment. You wanted to stand on a statue and tell a story that made you look like the forgiving father. But you never asked me what my story was. You never cared. You just needed a stage." The plaza was dead silent. Hundreds of people, maybe 1,000, were watching. I saw my mom, tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. She was nodding. I turned back to my dad. "You said you were worried about me. You said you were proud of me despite it all. But I didn't succeed despite you, Dad. I succeeded because of me. And I did it all without you ever believing I could." I handed the microphone back to him. It was a gentle, deliberate motion. His hand was shaking as he took it. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked through the crowd. People parted for me, just like they had for him, but it felt different. I wasn't a spectacle. I was a force. I walked straight to my mom. She threw her arms around me, sobbing. Maya was right behind her, her hand on my back. I could hear my dad's voice behind me, a tinny, desperate sound through the microphone, trying to say something, to regain control, to explain. Hold on. You don't understand. He's just emotional." I didn't look back. We left. Maya's dad, a quiet, solid man who sold farm equipment, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "That took guts, son." Her mom just hugged me, not saying a word. We walked to our cars and I drove off with my mom and Maya, leaving my dad and his microphone in the middle of that plaza. The aftermath was chaos. My phone started blowing up before we even left the parking lot. Text messages, calls, Facebook notifications. Claire texted me. "What the hell was that? You embarrassed him in front of everyone." I didn't respond. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years sent a message. "That was cold, Leo. He was just trying to be proud of you." But then there were others. A professor texted. "Well said. Congratulations, Leo." One of my clients, who had been in the crowd, sent a voice message. "Dude, I didn't know you had all that in you. Respect." My dad tried calling me 12 times that night. I let them all go to voicemail. The voicemails were a study in escalation. The first one was confused. "Leo, you really hurt my feelings, bud. Let's talk." The third one was defensive. "You made me look like a monster. I was just trying to be supportive." The seventh one was angry. "You're being dramatic. You need to apologize to me in front of the family." The 12th one was just silence, followed by a click. I spent the night at Maya's apartment. We didn't talk much. She just held me while I stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over in my head. Part of me expected to feel regret, to feel like I'd overreacted. But all I felt was a strange, hollow peace. The next morning, my mom called. Her voice was quiet, tired. "Your father wants to know when you're coming home," she said. "Mom, I'm not coming home," I said. It was the first time I'd said it out loud. There was a long pause. "I know," she said softly. "I'll come see you next weekend." That was it. No argument, no guilt trip. She knew. She had known for years. For weeks. My dad tried to spin the narrative. He told family members that I'd had a public meltdown, that I was under a lot of pressure, that he was worried about my mental health. It was his standard operating procedure. Control the story, make himself the victim. But the problem for him was that the story was already out. People had seen it. People had recorded it. A shaky, vertical video from the plaza went viral in our local community. Not national news, but within our city, within the university, within my family's social circle, it was everywhere. And the comments weren't on his side. People saw a father commandeer his son's graduation with a microphone. People saw a young man calmly set the record straight. The family was split down the middle. My mom's side, the quiet, practical ones, were quietly on my side. My dad's side, the ones who valued appearances above all else, were horrified. "You don't air your dirty laundry in public," my aunt, his sister, scolded me in a voice